The weekend arrived like a breath of fresh air, the kind of spring day that felt made for new beginnings. The sky was a clear, endless blue, the sun warm but tempered by a soft breeze, carrying the faint, briny scent of the ocean. It was the perfect backdrop for spontaneity, and I, true to form, had decided on a one-day road trip along Florida's coastline. No itinerary, no expectations, just my camera, the open road, and whatever caught my eye along the way. To my surprise, Patrick had agreed without hesitation. He seemed as ready to embrace the unknown as I was. Most people wanted plans, directions, a clear destination, but not Patrick. That shared openness, that willingness to follow wherever the day led, was one of the reasons he intrigued me. It wasn't about romance or any grand connection. It was about finding someone who didn't feel the need to box life into neat little categories. As he climbed into my car, a weathered hatchback affectionately named the Nomad, Patrick tossed his camera bag in the back and settled into the passenger seat. The leather was cracked from years of sun exposure, the faint scent of sunscreen and coffee lingering in the air. It wasn't much, but it was mine, a vehicle as ready for adventure as I was.
So, where are we headed first?
He asked, his grin easy and unassuming. I slid on my sunglasses, smirking as I started the engine. Wherever the road takes us. The highway stretched out before us like an open canvas, the sunlight glinting off the asphalt as we cruised along the coast. Palm trees lined the road, their fronds swaying in the breeze, and every now and then a glimpse of the ocean peeked through, its surface sparkling like shattered glass. Driving like this always gave me a sense of freedom, like the weight of expectations and deadlines couldn't keep up. The music hummed softly in the background, an eclectic playlist of indie tracks and old classics that matched the mood perfectly. The air inside the car felt light, charged with the kind of energy that comes from embracing the unknown. That's the thing about being an Aquarius. It's not just about avoiding structure, it's about finding beauty in the unexpected. I thrived on moments like this, when the day unfolded naturally, free from rigid plans. Our first stop was a small, secluded beach we spotted from the road. The sand glimmered like gold dust under the midday sun, untouched except for the occasional bird tracks. The horizon stretched endlessly, the line between sea and sky so faint it felt like the earth was dissolving into the heavens. It was the kind of place that felt untouched by time, a hidden gem waiting to be captured. Patrick and I wandered along the shore, cameras in hand. I crouched low to capture the way the light skimmed the water's edge, creating a kaleidoscope of reflections on the wet sand. Patrick moved with a quiet focus, pointing out textures I might have missed, the way a piece of driftwood cast jagged shadows, the ripples in the sand like an abstract painting. This place feels like it exists outside of time, I murmured to myself, the thought unbidden but fitting. That's what I loved about places like this. They didn't try to be anything more than they were. Solitude and simplicity, unassuming but profoundly beautiful. For me, every scene was a story waiting to be told, and I loved figuring out how to tell it through the lens. As the day wore on, we meandered through small seaside towns, stopping at colorful murals, weathered piers, and quiet marinas. One town had a diner that looked like it had been plucked straight from the 70s. Its vinyl booths cracked and sun-faded. The walls were adorned with black and white photos of fishermen, their faces weathered and proud. We stopped there for lunch, the smell of salt water and fried food mingling in the air. Shrimp tacos and fries weren't exactly gourmet, but they tasted like summer. Patrick asked me about my plans, where I saw myself going, what I wanted to do. It was the kind of question I'd been asked 100 times, but his way of asking didn't feel prying or judgmental. It felt curious. And that curiosity, that genuine desire to understand, was what made the question worth answering. I told him about my job search, my love for program design, and how I wasn't in any rush to jump into something just for the sake of stability. Aquarians don't rush. We value independence too much for that. The right thing would come along when it was meant to. And until then, I'd keep exploring photography, animation, the world. Patrick didn't press me for more. He didn't need to. He got it, and that understanding was more valuable than any advice he could have given. That's what I appreciated most. He didn't try to solve me. He just let me be. As we continued our drive, the sun began its descent, painting the sky in hues of pink, orange, and violet. The world seemed to soften under its glow, the shadows growing longer and the light more golden. I usually couldn't resist pulling over to capture sunsets like this, but today, I left my camera in its bag. Some moments didn't need to be preserved. They just needed to be lived. I glanced over at Patrick, who was watching the horizon with a thoughtful expression. "Thanks for coming today," I said quietly, the words slipping out without much thought. He smiled, his gaze still on the road ahead.
No problem, it was fun.
And it was. Not in an adrenaline-pumping, life-changing kind of way, but in the quiet, steady way that reminded me why I loved the road less traveled. For me, connection wasn't about grand gestures or constant companionship. It was about finding someone who could walk beside me, share the experience, and leave space for the silence to breathe. As the last light of day faded into twilight, I felt that familiar Aquarian contentment, a sense of freedom, possibility, and peace. Whatever was unfolding between Patrick and me didn't need a name or a definition. For now, we were just two people chasing light and stories, and that was more than enough.